It is Saturday night. It is the 6th day of World Childless Week, and so we're going live tonight. I believe it ends tomorrow, but we'll go live again tomorrow for our final night. And what we've been doing is talking about different topics related to being childless because it's World Childless Week. And this is a channel that is really geared toward people who are single and then also people who are childless, not by choice. So what we've been doing is talking about some different things each day while I've been coloring. Today I'm going to color something out of the Stress Relief coloring book by Coco Wio. I know they're super popular on TikTok and stuff, so... What are you doing? Gavin and I just came back. Gavin's my Great Dane. You'll probably hear him and see him a little bit in the background. We just came back for a walk. So he's probably going to take a second to settle in. Usually we have dinner right after a walk, but we went a little bit earlier tonight. So we'll see how he does. All right. So the picture that I'm going to color while we're talking is this little guy snuggled up in bed, journaling or writing. Gavin. Looks very familiar. I love to hang out in bed and just watch YouTube, journal, plan, brainstorm, write different things, come up with different ideas. So I relate to this one. So today, what are we talking about? We are going to talk about the different tropes that are about people who are childless, mostly women. I think men, there are also tropes related to that. But we're going to talk about some of the tropes related to being childless and or single. And we're going to talk about them. So the first one, Gavin, this is disgusting. So the first one that comes up is the sad spinster. And spinster is, I don't even know where that word originated from or came up with. I should probably look into that a little bit. It's an old-timey word. I think it's been around forever. And the way I have always used it is, right, just the woman who lives alone, doesn't have any kids, can't get a man, very just been around forever. And she's always pretty sad. It's like sort of the never married, very tragic woman. Sad, yearning, sometimes bitter, angry. I feel like when we see this in some stories, like the single women always have these like mystical or like magical sort of things. Maybe they're like witches, things like that. It's like so strange how some of this stuff sort of comes around. But one of the things that I asked the internet is to kind of talk about some examples of these tropes as we talk about them. Hang on. I'm going to get him something so he's not bothersome. Okay, is to talk about and give examples of some of the tropes. Some of the things that I realized when I did look about it is that they gave me some examples that I was like, I don't know if that's 100% accurate. So all of that to say is that's a little bit of a warning, is that some of the examples may not be exactly right, but we're going to do them anyway. And so the examples is the sad spinster. If you have some examples, put them in the chat or put them in the comments as well. Okay, my dog has the zoomies. Oh, God. So the first one is from Great Expectations, Miss Havisham. I've never read Great Expectations. It's one of those that I have not read. And the way they describe it is locked in her decaying wedding dress, forever lost in love. So that's a pretty depressing depiction of the sad spinster. The other one is Bridget Jones, introduced as a tragic 30-something and desperate for a partner. spinster is a little bit older than what I was thinking her age was in that story. I definitely don't like the idea of, she was definitely feeling like she was this chaotic, stumbling through life, depressed, not throughout the whole movie, but sort of disorganized person. And then when the man came, she sort of settled around. So that part I don't really like about the trope, but I do think she was going through things like career stuff like that. So it was even less about the man a little bit in there. Bridget Jones, I do like. I don't think it's super problematic, but I'm sure if I went back and watched it, I might think a little bit differently. I haven't seen it in a while. And the other one they suggest is Aunt March from Little Women. I also haven't read Little Women in a really long time. And they describe her as stern, controlling, and bitter, clearly framed as someone who missed out. And if that is how I kind of think about how people talk about a spinster. Like the buzzkill, the stern teacher, the stern aunt. Like, I just kind of think about the spinster like that. Like Anne of Green Gables has Marissa Cuthbert, and I'm sorry if I'm like remembering Anne of Green Gables wrong, and you're like, what the hell are you talking about, lady? But I kind of think of her. What's interesting is I haven't seen that movie in a long time, so it would be, or read the book, so it would be more of what I remember from watching as a kid, and definitely remembering her as a spinster type, the way I think about it in my head. That's okay if I'm talking to myself. I actually have a lot of my channel. I don't always announce the lives, so a lot of my channel watches them on the replay. And so I don't mind if I'm in here talking to myself, because I know my channel will be watching later. And I have Gavin with me, so don't worry about it. I'm okay. Okay, so the next one is the bitter career woman, and basically too ambitious for love, never prioritized love, works and sort of has more masculine traits, if there's such a thing as masculine and feminine traits, but has these more masculine traits at work. And then, I wish we could have a live without you barking like this. These more masculine traits that, she's not vulnerable. And, sometimes sleeps at the office. Hey, stop it. Come here. Hey. And, is like, all of a sudden wakes up and she's too old to have kids kind of thing. So a couple of, Gavin, please stop. I wish I could pause live. Hey. Maybe it's a good thing I'm talking to myself when he's like this. All right, I'm going to do this. So, some examples of the bitter career woman. Stop harassing my dog. I should. You don't feel sorry for Gavin. Gavin is well taken care of. Well taken care of. So yeah, don't feel sorry for him. I never watched the show House of Cards, but Claire Underwood comes up as an example of the bitter career woman in terms of this. I also never watched Suits, and Jessica Pearson from Suits also comes up. Kind of the married to their job type, but like emotionally unfulfilled, but has all the things like the purses and things like that. And then, um, kind of regrets that. Dr. Christina Yang from Grey's Anatomy, also often framed as emotionally detached. Um, it's been a long time since I watched Grey's Anatomy, but I don't know that I saw her as bitter. But again, it's been a long time. And then Patty Hughes from Damages. I also have never seen that show. Ruthless attorney whose success comes at the cost of warmth or connection. I feel like they portray a lot of male attorneys like that too. So maybe that's more of like an attorney trope. Versus kind of the female trope. Olivia Pope from Scandal, ambitious and elite, but her love life is chaotic and tragic and can't have it all. I also think there are some real life people who like the media or society sort of creates caricatures around that. Particularly some like female politicians. There was, I'm not getting into politics here, but, when Kamala Harris was running for vice president, she doesn't have any biological children. And that was something that came up, and they kind of talked about the career and not having kids, things like that. And I think there was even some things that were coming up around like, can you be humble if you don't have kids? Like stuff like that. So they definitely, this trope is very much still in existence. Hi, all just jumped on. Single and childless here. Cat mom supporting you all. Thank you. Welcome. We're talking about different like single and or childless tropes. It's World Childless Week, so we're going through some of those. And I'm a dog mom. Gavin, nice to meet you. So the next trope is the desperate baby chaser. This one is probably the most irritating to me, if we're gonna be real here. And it's whether the tropes are like some of them are like stealing kids, although I think those are like more some like other tropes wrapped in that. But also people kind of saying it's like almost like a cautionary tale. Like you don't want to end up like this person because, they are yearning for I'm sorry, I'm trying to find a color here. They are yearning for a kid. So, and like they'll do anything for a baby, right? Like they'll marry the wrong man, trick somebody into having a kid, and that are sort of these like hijinks type stuff. I think we're starting to move away a little bit from that because it's actually really problematic behavior for somebody. But it's just like someone's whole life starts to like move into that. Now, I will say, I think if you're like going through infertility and things like that, I think that process is so all consuming that happens, but that's somebody who wants to have a child, not someone who, I feel like this trope is more about the person who doesn't have one, particularly if they're single and they're like just, it takes over their life, but they're not actually, it's not like an IVF thing. It's more of like I got to find the right person and do the right things thing. A couple of ones that they brought up, one of them I didn't even think about, is not this one though. I think this is the one that like you think about all the time, but I think there was some IVF with her, but Charlotte York, obsessed with becoming a mother, and her storyline revolves around fertility. I don't know if this is a fair like representation of the trope of the baby chaser and the way that I think about it. I think she wanted to have a baby and so went about it through ways that she could. but it did become a storyline about, like, she was definitely, like, before it was the kid, it was finding the husband, right? Like, a lot of what her storylines were about were trying to find a husband and then trying to have a baby. The other one that came up was Monica Geller on Friends. And I do remember now that she had some fertility struggles. And that I like, the internet says it dominated her character arc, but I don't remember it that way. I could be wrong. I don't, when I can think of when I think of Charlotte York, like, the first things I think about is, like, her wanting to find a husband and her wanting to have babies. When I think of Monica Geller, that's not what I think about. I think about her being a chef and being, like, a neat freak. But I think when I think about this character, I think it was like something a lot of women go through. And so then it was portrayed. I don't think it was sort of it wasn't like the thing that her character was based around for the entire length of the show. So I don't know if that's a fair representation of that. What do you think one of the next tropes are? There's a few more. This one is more related to child-free versus childless. But it is the selfish child-free woman. And we're definitely going back to Sex and the City for this one, right? In terms of the tropes. I'm realizing Sex and the City had quite a few tropes of the singleness and women. So the selfish child-free woman, kind of cold and heartless, selfish, I think is a big thing that, they use a lot. And some examples of that in the media is Samantha Jones. They have confident in her choice, but portrayed as emotionally detached and obsessed with intimacy, but probably actually not intimacy, but attached with sex. Yeah, she definitely, I think, probably represented a certain type of woman. But, I think the thing with that show is, with a lot of shows, right? They show sort of those extremes. And the different types. And in some ways, I kind of think Carrie was a little more selfish. I thought Carrie was really selfish in that show. And I don't know, we can go back and sort of consider that, but I definitely thought Carrie was more selfish. And the next one is, so I saw this movie, but I can't remember much of it except the ending. But Amy Dunn in Gone Girl, and they describe her as ambitious, child-free, and portrayed as a dangerous manipulator. I definitely think that is one of the consistent themes of some of these tropes, is that women who don't have kids are not to be trusted. And, right, because they're suspicious, what's wrong with them? Why don't they have kids? And then, if they don't have kids, there's got to be some explanation that is a little harsh, I think. I really am not liking my coloring page. I really don't like the colors that I've chosen. Oh, well, I guess you win some, you lose some with that. And then the last one for this trope is from The Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is a whole other trope by itself. But Rebecca Bunch's boss, independent and child-free, but cast as the scary boss woman. Again, this idea that if you don't have kids, particularly if you choose not to have kids, then there is something about you that shouldn't be trusted. Manly, if we're going to talk about if there's such a thing as, masculine and feminine traits. Angry, bitter, cold, frigid, emotionally detached. Like all of these words. So what is one of the next tropes? The next trope that they have is the quirky aunt. And I definitely think this one's around. I think sometimes they sort of introduce the concept of the aunt because they struggled how to get the audience, because we have so much societal assumptions and expectations and things like that. They're trying to get the audience to see the person or see the character as a little more relatable, vulnerable, things like that. So they use the quirky aunt and the way they do that as kids, which I wish we could use other things other than children to do that. Comic relief, never taken seriously. Again, I sort of like when I think about this, someone who's a little messy, a little quirky, a little bit of like countercultural, I guess. And some examples that they talk about this. And for some of you who are my age, this is going to be a throwback, but they talk about Sabrina, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Aunt Hilda, and Zelda. Magical and fun, but not full humans with serious stories. Hates kids and dating issues. You bet. Like, there's something wrong with her. She's too picky. Or, like, comes on too strong. Picks the wrong people. Hates kids is a big one, I think. Like, again, I do think these tropes do things in order to make people, women who don't have kids, as very suspicious. I think they do it with men too, but they use different ways or different things to do it. Greetings from Germany. Tuned in yesterday as well and really touched by you and your message. Keep it up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back. Just out here trying to talk about my stuff on the internet, huh? But again, like always, like suspiciousness. Like with men, I think they talk about it more as like, this man is unserious, a cad, womanizer. Again, all these traits that kind of aren't flattering. And with women, definitely angry. I kind of think they make the Bachelor seem sort of happy. It's very different how they look at it differently. Okay. The other one that they talk about is Aunt Clara from Bewitched, which I can't remember. Even that one's a little bit before my time, but they have her sweet and bumbling, mostly there for laughs. I think, yeah, like definitely sort of that sidekick mentality. Not serious for whatever reason. Okay. This one, the next trope is more related to Childfree as well. And it is she'll change her mind trope. And this one, I'm not child free, I'm childless, but I definitely feel super frustrated for child free women on behalf of them in terms of, oh, you'll change your mind. You don't, as if all women want the same thing, right? And she just needs to read. And this part of the trope really irritates me, where it's, well, she just needs to meet the right man. There's a couple things problematic with that. And I come at this from a sense of whether you're man, woman, or however, you conceptualize sort of things. I think that relying on somebody else to complete us or make us happy is a pretty dangerous slope. I'm not saying that people can't feel, I'm not saying that there's not benefits related for some people related to being in partnership and like building something together, building a life together, a home together. I'm not anti-partnership by any means or anti-marriage. And so I always sometimes want to caveat that, probably because I don't want to be pigeonholed into one of these tropes of being this like angry man hater. I guess I'm even like catching myself like over explaining a little bit as we're talking about this. But it is a big responsibility. Like, I do like the idea of people intentionally thinking about, hey, am I prepared to do this? And am I prepared to do what it takes, right? Because it's kind of one of those jobs that you really can't screw up. Like you don't get to screw up parenting. I mean, people do, but we kind of need you not to. So some examples of this. Before we do that, I agree it can be really dangerous to seek personal completion in a partner. It can totally crush you if that bond fails. Yeah, and that's a little bit of my story, which I won't go in, but I think I overly invested to the point where like everything about what I wanted and what my future was, I thought it was going to be a part like this partner and the concept of marriage and all of that. And so when that didn't occur, it was a gut punch in a big way that was hard to rebound from. I also think, and again, I'm probably speaking a little bit outside of what I should speak about here, but I think if you are in a marriage and you do sort of think about your partner as like your other half in terms of I'm not whole without or things like that. And I understand those are just like things people say to sort of describe a larger thing, but that's a huge burden to put on your partner, I think too. And I don't know that that's super fair. Like my happiness revolves around what you do, and this other person is now sort of the linchpin and all of that. And for me personally, I just think that's a really heavy burden to put on somebody. I just think that's really brutal. Sorry, I'm looking for gray. Here we go. So some examples of you just need to find the right person. So Robin Scherbatsky on How I Met Your Mother constantly told she'll want kids eventually. And then it says until a weird reversal, which I didn't really watch that show toward the end close enough to know what that is. The other one is, I can remember my mom watching the show and watching it with her. And I was a little kid, and I actually really remember like thinking it was weird she didn't have a kid or want a kid, and remember thinking, oh my God, this is so great. She had a kid. Murphy Brown. She is a little bit of the not a little bit, they definitely talk about her being married to her career and everything too, along those lines. But they have her as fiercely independent until she miraculously changes her mind. And then not only about like miraculously changing your mind, but then it just happens. Poof, I changed my mind. So now I can I can just do that whenever I want. And that's not true either. Um, I think a lot of women of a certain age, and I think I'm in that age, um, it wasn't as relevant for me, but you think you have all the time in the world, and you don't. Damn it. I really love these markers. I just wish I had more color choices. Okay, and the last one is April Kepner from Grey's Anatomy, originally anti-marriage and anti-babies. Okay, see, that's just what Cara was saying too. Like, it's not necessarily about being anti anything, but rewritten into a wife and a mom, right? Like, it's almost like they just can't portray somebody not wanting to have kids, and maybe not wanting to be in a marriage. And then the arc is always that something happens and changes her mind, or something happens to make her think otherwise. I knew a woman who would check off the divorce box on dating websites rather than never married, even though she was never married. I want to do a video around this a little bit. It's, there is a sense of shame around some stuff. And what's interesting, Sarah, is I do the opposite. I was divorced almost 20 years ago, and I don't think of it like, let me rephrase that. I absolutely think of it constantly. No, let me rephrase that. I know I'm divorced, but it's been so long that I don't actually like identify it as that. And because we didn't have kids, even like the trope of the divorced woman, I don't necessarily feel like I fit into that. And so I end up checking single, even though technically I'm divorced, but I definitely feel more single. And I definitely felt a ton of shame. I got divorced when I was 27. Was I 27? Yeah, I was 27. I didn't know other people my age that were divorced. In fact, they were all getting married. There's no good time for a divorce, but God, that sucked hard. So yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. I check single versus divorce. But I do think my lifestyle feels more single than divorce for sure. Would definitely love to see a video on that. Yeah, let me write it down. I have like I've had a spurt of creativity, where I have, I might do like shame around childlessness, singleness, and divorce. Okay. Interesting idea. What about the mom shows that? And then I got cut off, so not quite sure. What about the mom shows that? Could you ask that again? Just because I might have deviated away from the conversation a little bit, where I'm not tracking that. Okay. What about being, and then I had a couple of other questions to do if I had some time. I am finished with my coloring page. I didn't have a brown. I really wish I had a brown. But I'm kind of having fun. I'm like interested in this. So I'm going to go ahead and ask these questions that I had as backup. What's one moment in a movie or show that actually helped you feel at peace with being single or childless? Oh, damn. I don't know. I think just seeing it represented a little bit, like the complications around it, I would say. Okay, sorry, mom shows that make the single life sad or not as dignified. Not as dignified or sacrificial. Yeah, like as if it's meaningless, it's a vapid life. It's all about pursuing something different, It's all about like pursuing the man, pursuing sex, like as if it's all like partying, going out of the town. It's like this like emptiness, which isn't. Listen, marriage can be empty too. Like, and I don't say that as like marriage is empty. What I mean is those things aren't necessarily attached to marriage, like how you live your life, um, is about that, not necessarily the status that you have or label that you have. If you were in a movie, oh, I'm not gonna like this question's gonna be annoying. If you were, I already know. If you were in a movie or could, who would play you, and would your character have kids? I mean, no, my character wouldn't have kids because I don't have kids, and I'm cool and feel good about my actual life being what is represented. You know who I would want to play me is her name is Phoebe. Oh shoot, I can't. I'm gonna look here. She's the person who was in Fleabag. Oh God, I love her. Phoebe, um, Phoebe Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She was in Fleabag. She also had this like play that she did. I absolutely love her. I don't look like her, but yeah, I would love her to play me. And no, my character wouldn't have kids because I don't have kids. My character would have a kick-ass Great Dane though. Yeah. Who would probably be the star of the show, if we're honest. Do you think media is getting better or worse at showing diverse life paths? Probably better. I don't think, like, definitely not at where we need to be at or where it would be, like, fun to be at or that I think people want them to be at. But, yeah, I mean, of course, I think it's getting better in terms of where things were 50 years ago versus 30 years ago versus 20 years ago, right? And I do appreciate that, but I do think this is one of the things that'll be maybe the last thing to kind of get shown. These tropes have been around centuries. And they're probably gonna die off hard. And I don't know that they will die off because I do think there's like other agendas that sort of benefit from kind of making, people's lives who don't have children or who are single kind of pathetic, less than, scary, things like that. What's one message you wish more shows gave about people like you? I wish they were just more multifaceted. Like, I'm sure every kind of demographic wishes that things were more like different aspects were shown. And ultimately, I wish that there were just characters and shows that just happen to be someone who doesn't have kids. Like, it just happens to be the thing, and that we're not needing to make them fit into a certain trope in order for people to understand it or put it together or, I guess that's what I would say. I guess I'm looking forward to maybe when we can stop asking why, and that writers or Hollywood or whoever it is feels like they cannot have somebody with a certain demographic in a show that just happens to be maybe childless, without making a large part of that character the why behind that, right? I do think there's some importance around that, if for no other reason that I think people assume someone's childless or doesn't have kids because they don't want them or because of, I think, like medical issues or fertility issues. And that's actually not why the majority of people or women are childless. It's a lot of circumstances. And I think that's something that if they would explore that a little bit more, all the different ways that this can occur, I probably would be open to that. I think that's important. You know, I described sort of my situation recently, you know, and some of the like leadership books, and when there's like a catastrophic event, and I'm not saying it's catastrophic that I don't have kids, but they talk about the Swiss cheese effect, where like all these different things have to line up just perfectly in order for that particular outcome to occur. And I resonate with that. Like I relate to that. I think that the reason that I don't have kids is there's a lot that kind of went into that and is a part of that. Some of the things I think if I could go back and make different decisions, I think I would. I don't know that I would say I have regret, but I recognize that it also wasn't just me fumbling through life, not making decisions, and maybe making decisions based more on like trauma responses, avoidance, things like that. Again, it's multifaceted how this happens, just like with any other thing in life. I guess I'll close tonight by saying, like, if I could go back and do something differently, I would have started seeing a therapist much sooner after I went through something that was very, very difficult for me emotionally, which was that divorce. Trauma and grief robs years without us realizing it. That's the exact way that I would say that, and I couldn't pull it out of my brain. Thanks, Sarah, for saying it, because I think I resonate with that a lot. A lot. I resonate with that. I think I got into some self-protection mode, really hardcore, and then lost a lot of years around that. Not that I didn't have like times during those years that I enjoyed life and all of those things, but yeah, I woke up and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, this is now feeling much more imminent. Same. Yeah. It's not uncommon, but it's not the thing that gets portrayed or talked about, right? Because it's like not necessarily one of those tropes. So yeah, interesting conversation tonight. Thanks guys for joining. My phone is hanging on by a thread here. Let's see, tomorrow's Sunday. It's the last day of World Childless Week. I'll go live again tomorrow. If you're interested in more topics and conversation around childlessness, you can go to World Childless Week's YouTube channel, and they post a lot of the webinars. I was on a webinar on Friday that didn't record, and it was so good. Unfortunately, you can't go check out the one that I was in, but there was some really good ones with more to come tomorrow. Good to see everybody. Thanks, guys, for your input and comments. And I'll see you tomorrow. Subscribe to Sonder Sisterhood. We're a YouTube channel for the single and also the childless, not by choice person. And I have some really fun videos or interesting, I would say interesting topics, videos coming up that I'm really looking forward to showing with you guys. Thanks, Kara. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks from Germany as well. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Bye. Oh, let me show you Gabby. Yeah. Say bye, Gav.